We recently launched EcoSaver Mode, which enables us to batch orders and actually reduce the emissions related to our last mile delivery. Because now a delivery partner is able to collect, say, 2 or 3 orders from multiple restaurants that are right next door to each other and then deliver them to 3 separate customers, for example, right? Saving 3 rounds of deliveries. And when we initially launched it, we did not have any incentive to it. We were not subsidizing or giving any sort of a cost benefit to the customer. But we saw in a very short span of time, in less than a few weeks of launching this last year, within single digit percentage numbers, customers had actually moved to EcoSaver. Even though this meant that it would take about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes more for their order to be delivered, they were very comfortable making that switch. So for us, that was really heartening to see. That meant that customers are willing to inconvenience themselves slightly and wait longer to get their food if we are able to reduce carbon emissions from their orders.
Welcome back for another episode of the Voice of Generation Climate, TVOGC. Today we have with us Amrita Sarna, who's the General Manager of Sustainability and Public Policy at Swiggy. Amrita, what a pleasure to have you with us today.
So happy to be here, Ani, and good to see you again. Really looking forward to our chat today.
Me too, me too. So Swiggy has recently had a phenomenal IPO. You guys are obviously the duopolistic dominant in the food delivery space, and now one of 3 major players in the quick commerce space. Your reach and distribution is obviously like it surpasses any other consumer brands in the country now. What is the role of sustainability through Swiggy's eyes, and how are you adopting it deeper and deeper into your value chain and mainstreaming sustainability as a choice? It's very, very many questions packed into one. Maybe you can just address it however you would like.
Yeah. So, Ani, yes, we had a very exciting IPO and a very, fast-paced year. So 24-25 has been, of course, all about the listing, but also building a business that's a lot stronger and has a very solid foundation that will last us for the years to come. So I think governance is, in any case, very strongly embedded in the organization. And I walked into Swiggy about a little less than a year ago, and it was good to see that our governance structures, processes, systems, our commitment to compliance was very, very strong already. So there wasn't much really to do there. But on the environment and social front, I think the pace has definitely accelerated in the last 12 months or so. A little bit driven by the listing, but also a lot of it driven internally by the commitment and the intention to be better as an organization.
Yeah.
So our leadership and our management team, Harsha and Rohit, Amitesh, we see the entire organization has a very strong sustainability lens. So the way sustainability is being looked at Swiggy is from the lens that it should be cost accretive. It should be an investment that will help us in the longer run, which will build a more efficient and more lean organization with lesser footprint across emissions, plastic, waste, and just ensure that there's positive social impact as well. So another really interesting thing about how we are driving sustainability at Swiggy is that it is not my charter. It is the charter of a Swiggy sustainability squad. So we have over a 20-member team actually, and this is a team of senior leaders and change makers who are driving the sustainability charter and agenda at Swiggy. So these are people in different businesses and different functions who are making key decisions, right, and driving progress towards our sustainability goals. So that's what I think is one of the most exciting things and ways that we're looking at sustainability in Swiggy. It's not just the sustainability team's job. In fact, we play a much smaller role. We play a supporting role here. And it is really the Swiggy Sustainability Squad that is driving projects, driving initiatives, delivering impact, coming back to us with amazing innovations that they're intending to make in their respective businesses to actually ensure that we reach our goals on time if not before. So that's one thing that I love about how we're doing sustainability at Swiggy.
What maybe? Any
Yes.
names that come to mind you want to call out as well?
Yeah, of course. I think very early into our journey, you were part of that journey. Actually, we work very closely with Nishtha, who is part of this squad. We have from the Instamart ecosystem, we have Priya Chandramoli, who's leading the charter. From food, up until recently, we had Divya, who was leading the charter, and similarly from HR admin, we have folks like Joyson, Surinder. We have people in the customer ecosystem like Selva and Indranil who are driving this. So we have a fantastic mindset and ownership within this Swiggy sustainability squad. And these are, not actually KRAs or OKRs for this team. So what's amazing is that they're voluntarily taking this up and they're driving this charter without, being part of their job descriptions or being part of their performance reviews, which is amazing. And let me tell you, there are people who are already incredibly busy. They don't have time, but they make time. And that's what is super
It's
energizing for me.
a hallmark of like absolute missionaries too, right? Who go above and beyond their job title
Yeah,
and do it voluntarily out of their own volition because they just care to. And
yes,
things typically we've noticed this as a pattern amongst so many companies that we've
yeah,
worked with or had conversations with. Typically, these initiatives last a lot longer and are far more fruitful and like meaningful when it's driven by missionaries who do it because they care, rather than if it
yeah,
was just because it was that KRA or like a job title, right? Those kind of tend to not necessarily last or like it's not the same
absolutely.
compared to when missionaries drive these forward.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
And we've seen a lot of them actually come to us and say, we need to talk about ESG and sustainability a lot more. And we've had people like Kavya, who leads our internal communications, actually come up with a calendar for us to talk about sustainability internally. So that's the
Wow.
kind of ownership we are seeing across the board.
Wow. Communicating impact from climate initiatives and sustainability initiatives is actually very difficult because
Mm.
you have to communicate in the simplest possible language that most people can understand, right? And if someone
Yeah,
takes that effort on, I hats off to them because it's
yeah,
like really, really essential and really difficult to do that. So go Kavya. Yeah, that's really, really cool. And I think in Swiggy's case, there is a perfect confluence of the multiple forces, external and internal, driving this forward. Like you mentioned, leadership driven. Your leadership deeply cares about just building a purpose-driven brand and
yeah,
rolling out more initiatives that are just good for the planet. The second is, of course, compliance and the markets, right? Now that you're a public listed company, there are compliances that you have to meet government standards. I think that's another strong force. And I think the third big one is customer driven, right? Customers are just demanding better in terms of materials and packaging, in terms of how they get their deliveries, in terms of the kind of ingredients being used, right? So can you talk more about the customer segment and what have you seen customers asking for in terms of environment, sustainability, and how that's influenced thinking within Swiggy? Because that's a very strong force.
yeah, absolutely. So, in fact, I just want to take the example of EcoSaver. We recently launched
Yeah.
EcoSaver Mode, which enables us to batch orders and actually reduce the emissions related to our last mile delivery. Because now a delivery partner is able to collect, say, 2 or 3 orders from multiple restaurants that are right next door to each other
Yeah.
and then deliver them to 3 separate customers, for example, right? Saving 3 rounds of deliveries. And when we initially launched it, we did not have any incentive to it. We were not subsidizing or giving any sort of cost benefit to the customer. But we saw in a very short span of time, in less than a few weeks of launching this last year, within single digit percentage numbers, customers had actually moved to EcoSaver, even though
Wow.
this meant that it would take about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes more for their order to be delivered, they were very comfortable making that switch. So for us, that was really heartening to see. That meant that customers are willing to inconvenience themselves slightly and wait longer to get their food if we are able to reduce carbon emissions from their orders. So there is a clear expectation of customers today. I mean, people like you and me, whenever we interact with a brand, I think we're conscious of what the brand stands for, whether the brand is
Yeah.
doing good for the ecosystem that it interacts with directly or indirectly. It matters to all of us, right? And we're seeing that a lot more with our customers as well. And even Swiggy Seal, for example, which was launched again last year, which focuses on understanding whether restaurants are hygienic, food quality is superior, good. So we saw a lot of interest from customers opting for restaurants that have been recognized with Swiggy Seal. So, definitely think that customers today care about the brands they're interacting with, and they're more conscious about the choices they make. They're even willing to inconvenience themselves or pay a little bit more if they see more value attached to the brand that
Absolutely.
they're
Absolutely.
ordering from. Yeah.
For climate action, it has to be a movement, right? And it can't be like really, really difficult, really expensive, really just abstract. It has to be real, meaningful. You got to be able to see impact and small, bite size, right? So that people have an easy way to get started. And that's one of the reasons I've been most excited about having this conversation with Swiggy, just because you're in a position to mainstream it, right?
Yeah.
Mass movement, consumer adoption. It's taking it out away from the behind the scenes climate action that typically happens, right? Enterprise level, and mainstreaming it, putting it in front of every consumer, which bite
And
size creates a lot of impact.
absolutely, and it's about involving each person in their daily life and
Yes. Yeah.
enabling them to make these decisions because we have that kind of reach, right? And we're talking to so many people on a day-to-day
Yeah.
basis. It's definitely easier for us to get through to the lakhs and lakhs of consumers we
Yeah.
associate with.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. It needs to be a movement. It can't be regulatorily driven or driven by the public sector or even the private sector. It has to be driven by you and me and people who are making daily small decisions.
Yeah. That's why we call this entire podcast we've been doing for about 2.5 years now within Climes, Generation Climate, the voice of Generation Climate. Because what we realize is it's not Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, boomers who care. It can be anyone who cares. And if you just think to care for climate and you start taking some action, you're Generation Climate. So
Yeah.
recognizing who those people are and then allowing them the choices to make a climate positive action really then makes them want to do more. And that's the coolest part, right? So when you talked about EcoSaver, I was just thinking about how somebody who's opted in for EcoSaver has technically delayed their delivery by 5-10 minutes, but opted for a more carbon efficient delivery. But that thought of their being more climate positive will ripple into other decisions they also take to be more climate positive,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's that
right?
awareness, right? It's a touch point and it makes you aware that if I were to take lesser trips up and down, for example, if I were to plan my commute better or if I were to carpool, that would mean that I also save certain
Yeah,
emissions. And that ripple effect, I think, is what will lead to the movement that we need today. And I actually
absolutely.
want to go back to our event also, this sustainability summit that we just
Sustainable growth.
did. The kind of overwhelmingly positive feedback we received from the carbon offsetting that we did at the event to make it a zero carbon event, and also the zero waste approach that we undertook, right? We got insanely overwhelming response from people. Like, I didn't meet a single person at the event who didn't come up to me and say that this is such a different and such a thoughtful and mindful way of doing an event. And what all did you do to make it a zero waste and zero carbon event? And we've literally circulated checklists of what all we did with other organizations and people who participated at the event because of that curiosity and interest. And I'm sure they're taking some of that back home with them and seeing how they can apply that in their own daily
Yeah,
lives, right?
absolutely. And I think that's the most powerful part, which is why I keep going back to, like the small nudges that
Yeah.
create 10x or 100x larger impact. Uh, so what are some other nudges? Like you did EcoSaver. What are some other green nudges you've introduced that have had a ripple effect through your value chain?
Yeah, so I think one of the other initiatives that we launched, which is personally very close to my heart, is a partnership with Robin Hood Army. So we launched Swiggy Serve, which aims to redirect surplus food and excess food from restaurants to people who need it most. There's a lot of food wastage that happens sometimes because of, bad estimations, bad inventory planning. Other times just because there is a little bit of waste that you absolutely cannot eliminate from the restaurant ecosystem and Horeca ecosystem. What this does is it enables Robins who are present all across India to collect food from restaurants associated with us and go on donation drives, give this to kids or adults or senior citizens or even people outside hospitals who are waiting, for example, AIMS and other hospitals. So provides them nutritious, complete meals. And I think that makes really good use of the surplus food in the system. And what we've seen is restaurants are extremely interested and keen in signing up. They're coming to us with active interest. We haven't really been marketing it per se because we haven't needed to. Fortunately, we've seen brilliant traction. And now we're planning to extend this. We're actually going to make this also an employee volunteering initiative because internally we've received so much interest and enthusiasm, and our own colleagues want to be part of this initiative. So we're intending to make this a full-fledged employee volunteering program as well.
Wow, so that's completely pull driven. It's not push, it's pull. You tried something
Yeah,
and you're seeing there's an option for it naturally. Um,
yes,
we'll forget that food waste is just a terrible plague. There's so much food that gets wasted, and that can just be prevented. You need to produce less food,
yeah,
right? Which automatically has a ripple effect again on how much carbon is emitted and just
yes.
wastage, right?
Yeah. And I think restaurants are doing a pretty good job. We have gotten to the point where, because of AI and technology, they're able to plan better and they're able to understand how much dal makhani is needed, for example, on a Tuesday in Delhi. Right. So they are able to plan to a great extent, but I think there are some unforeseen ways which you just can't eliminate, which this tackles really well. Exactly. So I think we're just trying to find, of course, use technology and use our systems and processes to improve waste management, reduce waste as far as possible, but then also find avenues to redirect waste where there is such unavoidable, circumstances.
Yeah. Initiatives add up to a large amount of impact, right?
Yeah,
No food wastage, or reducing food wastage, batching orders together, showing emissions, doing events to market your sustainability initiatives so that others may actually pull similar initiatives back in their own companies where they work,
yeah,
right? I think a lot has happened in the last 1 year since you came because obviously the listing happened and there's been a huge push toward really driving, making sustainability, a part of your DNA in the company. You had your first summit that you
absolutely.
mentioned, which happened in March. There were quite a few initiatives rolled out over there as well. What are some other initiatives you are now going after? Some that you mentioned in the event and some that are still in the pipeline. And who are some of the companies that you've partnered with externally to help achieve these goals? Because you have a lot of partners that you work with too, right? For your EV
Yes.
target and yeah.
Yeah. So, few things that we announced at the event itself was one of them was our partnership with Sulabh, which is the first of its kind. Sulabh
Mhm.
International has been renowned for their sanitation and hygiene efforts across the country. And they actually pioneered the pay and use model for public facilities and toilets, which has done exceptionally well in the country and has actually been a best practice that has been adopted by many global governments. So we partnered with them to provide access to our to toilet facilities for our delivery partners in 6 cities to begin with. And we intend to take this forward, of course, make it a pan-India initiative. Other than Sulabh, we've also launched a few exciting partnerships last year, starting with Swiggy Skills, which we partnered with Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship to integrate Skill India Digital Hub with our restaurant partner app as well as our delivery partner app, enabling folks from both these ecosystems to actually access courses for free offered by the Ministry of Skill Development's ecosystem. We also are trying to create job opportunities very actively for folks who have been associated with the relevant skill sector councils, which are under Ministry of Skill Development, within our Instamart and our food ecosystem. So we are mapping those folks who have been through the relevant courses and have the required certifications from MSD's ecosystem to the job roles that are available within our ecosystem. So creating a lot of job and internship opportunities, and of course, upskilling, reskilling, and enabling financial literacy as well through a partnership with National Stock Exchange. So within the Swiggy Skills umbrella, we have these two very powerful partnerships today. We also work with 21cc to develop content and learning modules for our delivery partners, specifically for English literacy. And other than, Swiggy Skills, I think another interesting program is, of course, She the Change. This is one of our flagship programs that focuses on inclusivity and promoting women within our ecosystem, be it the restaurant ecosystem or the Instamart ecosystem. Last year, we actually launched this flagship initiative with the finance minister, Nirmala ji. At the event, she inaugurated it. She recognized over 50,000 female restaurant partners who've created over 300,000 job opportunities in the Horeca ecosystem. And we were able to get a lot of these women actually to Delhi to meet her and interact with her. And it was a very moving event that we did and very well appreciated as well. And then from there, we are now extending it to the Instamart ecosystem, and we are trying to understand how we can enable and promote more inclusivity and representation from women in the Instamart ecosystem. We've seen actually women do a lot better in certain jobs, and they're a better fit for the kind of jobs we have in the Instamart ecosystem. So we're trying to see more and more how we can bring women into it and make it more palatable for women. Even for that matter, in the delivery ecosystem, the flexibility, and a few reports that we've seen actually say that women are extremely, or rather, the gig economy and gig flexibility that it provides is very suitable for women. And we are also working actively to understand how we can increase women representation in our delivery partner network. In fact, we announced a target last year to bring in 100,000 women by 2030 into our delivery partner network, which is
Wow,
a
that's
very
big one.
ambitious target. Yeah.
How much is it right now? How many
Uh,
women delivery
it
partners
is
is it?
not very high, I will be honest. It's about, in the 20,000s space.
And you're going to get it up to
But
100,000.
yes,
Oh,
yes,
that's
yeah.
incredible.
So it's ambitious, but it's exciting.
So you, like I said, you need partners to scale each of your programs, right? Pilot and then implement and then scale each of these programs. Particularly on the climate, sustainability, environment front, um, what has your system been to find new initiatives to pilot? Like, how do you find these companies? Because there are thousands of climate and sustainability companies now, and everyone's obviously looking for new business partners, and the scale and distribution you enable is just, like I said, unparalleled, right? So how do they find you? How do you find them to pilot projects together that could then help on the waste front, on the carbon front, water, energy, maybe even air pollution, right? What is that approach for partnerships? How could they work with Swiggy? How would they reach you and get a pilot of some form?
Yeah. So I think for this, you guys have been great, right? Working with Sus Mafia, actually, I know you're associated very closely with Sus Mafia. So through amazing programs like the Sustainathon, the Cooperado Sustainathon we did with Sus Mafia last year, we were introduced to so many startups, including Climes, of course, Green Pods, and many more. We were able to get their founders to the table to speak to our founders and our management. and the key decision makers, right? And I think that was a very interesting format, the first of its kind I've seen in the last many years in this, sector. So it's been these kind of programs, and of course, events, networks. LinkedIn, I think, has been such a great way. I've met so many founders and so many interesting solution providers via LinkedIn as well, because these days it's just a message and then that leads to a conversation, and then eventually that has led to even partnerships for us. So that's definitely, for me, that was Sahas actually, which we're working very closely with Sahas as well for waste management. So yeah, over to you.
So
You were
I
saying.
think there's so much innovation going on in the country. You guys are doing your own R&D, but like in India, we have phenomenal founders building phenomenal companies across the board, right? And I really feel like, especially for the climate and sustainability challenge, so many great innovations that can really make a big difference once they reach mainstream adoption, pilot and then mainstream adoption, right? And that's where I am most excited about like a platform like Swiggy, of course, delivering joy and food to people's homes, but also being that platform, an agent of climate action, right? Mass marketing and mass adoption of climate action initiatives with these little nudges. That to me is the single biggest like win that I think we're going to achieve over the next couple of years, right? Really, with the distribution you've built, mainstreaming sustainability. I think that's really cool, and I'm most excited for that, right?
Yeah,
Because you will be able to
so are
take
we.
climate action into people's homes.
Yes. And, we're all about delivering unparalleled convenience, but more and more we're moving towards delivering unparalleled convenience responsibly. So we're thinking more and more about the responsible aspect and what we owe to the ecosystem and what we owe to our value network. And
Yeah,
it's becoming a lot more intentional. I would say it's always been in the fabric of Swiggy, but now it's becoming more and more intentional, it's becoming more and more proactive, and it's becoming a lot more accelerated.
yeah. Are there any specific problem statements yet unsolved? So you guys have it laid out as, okay, we want to solve X. We haven't been able to do it so far because of whatever reason. What are some of those problem statements that you're looking to solve either internally or with external help?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Ani, because there are many challenges, but I will focus on what I think is right now possibly the most problematic, and I think that's scope three, right? And for a variety of reasons. To begin with, because you have limited agency and influence over your value network. So even when you look at the 100% EV target that we've taken, and a lot of companies have actually taken, yeah, it is a fairly, you know, large challenge for us. It is a mammoth uphill task that lies ahead of us. And it's a lot because how do you really make the social norm and individual behavior shift towards a vehicle which has typically not been around for long, which doesn't have a very established secondary market, and which is also not conventionally looked at as a cool vehicle, if you know what I mean, right? A lot of us grew up with the sound of a Bullet or a Royal Enfield being what was associated as the cool coming of age thing for a boy. And when you look at an EV, it doesn't hit any of those boxes. It's a relatively quiet vehicle. It does not have the oomph and the jazz of a bike or even a cool scooter for that matter. And the India that we're looking at, right, they aspired for a scooter or a bike um, like a Bullet or an Enfield. So, how do you change the perception of an EV to be something that is aspirational, to be something that is exciting, that can be the coming of age for a delivery partner, right? That's one thing. Of course, that is the softer aspect of it. There are a lot of other challenges that are present in the EV ecosystem, be it the swapping model or the charging infrastructure, the secondary market, the radius that these bikes can actually cover, because typically a lot of our delivery partners are doing about 200 kilometers a day. pre-planning your charging or your battery swapping is a whole entire new thought process that they have to develop. So it's a big shift that we would need to make, and the one of the ways I see that happening is, of course, it will be regulatorily driven at some point. We will have better technology coming in. We will have better manufacturers and lower cost EVs made available to cater to this segment, right? But we will also need to work on using internal influencers within the delivery partner network to enable this change. Because what we've seen is in an area where there are EVs or where there has been so much success with EVs, you see a rapid adoption of EVs. Whereas if in another area or another pocket of the city, a few people have had a bad experience with an EV, you see that there is an absolute aversion to the adoption of EVs because these guys are talking to each other, right? You meet at an Instamart pod to collect an order. You usually see a few of them, together having an informal chat, maybe having even chai in the evening in the clusters where they belong, in the zones they belong. And they are talking to each other a lot about their experiences and they are heavily influenced by each other's experiences. So ensuring that we have ambassadors within the network itself for EVs, right? That's also something we need to do. And when you look at EVs, right, most of these guys either have a scooter or an existing bike in the family or in the household, which they're able to use. This is about buying a whole new vehicle or leasing a whole new vehicle or renting it on a daily basis. So there is that initial capex also that, at least in most cases, would be required. Of course, when we are looking at someone who doesn't have a bike, we're able to actually redirect them to EV scooters and EV vehicles. And we are able to actually ensure some conversion there when they don't have a vehicle already. But when they have a vehicle, it's a much larger, longer game to be played, and that we are going to struggle with for the next few years, I feel. Also making sure there are enough microfinance and microcredit opportunities for EVs, which are actually lucrative for our delivery partners. That's also something that will be important in this entire scheme of things.
This is also, in a way, a green nudge. You're trying to influence your delivery partners to make the conscious choice of doing more EV adoption because they have to want to do it, right? They have to
Yeah.
have forms of access to financing. They have to actually
Yes.
want to do it. They have to have heard good things from their peers about riding an EV bike, scooter or bike, right?
Yes.
And that's something we just don't think about. Like it's ground up adoption, right? Make you have to influence them to actually want to do it. Otherwise, any
Yes.
target, any goal setting is just not going to materialize, right? If the people who are the stakeholders in between don't want to do it. So again, it goes down to behavior
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, absolutely. And even, when you look at the larger scope three, beyond our delivery associated emissions, when you look at scope three in the value chain, that has become, of course, very important to us from a compliance and reporting perspective also. But it's incredibly tough actually to for an organization like us. You can imagine the scale of our value network. You can imagine how many partners, vendors, suppliers we have associated with us, and of course, a lot of them are global companies. They're MNCs. A lot of them are the number one or top players in their different industries in India and globally, but a lot of them are also a lot smaller, right, in scale and size. So to actually create awareness within that network regarding the importance of ESG, of better practices, ethical practices, and of even providing certain data, collecting certain data, and sharing it with us on a frequent basis. I think that is a significant uphill challenge as well that we will face. And I think a lot of companies are facing that. It's not us alone, it is the entire, I would say, corporate India, which is today facing that struggle.
Yeah, I think you're definitely ingraining sustainability in the DNA of Swiggy. And in fact, there's a Swiggy sustainability charter also that got launched at the event in March, which I recommend everyone should go and look up. Um, And now that Swiggy's on that pathway, right, to make sustainability a default choice, you're in a really high impact role and position to make that happen, to drive that change and mainstream. I think mainstreaming sustainability is how I would describe what you're doing in your role. What about personal influences? So I want to understand, you're here now in this really high impact, high leverage role, mainstreaming sustainability. In my opinion, Amrita, your job is mainstreaming sustainability, right? With mass market Indians. Um, what are the influences that have played a part to get you here? What books, movies, people, other companies you look at for inspiration? Influences while you've grown up. It can be any one of them, a sum of many parts. What do you
Yeah.
remember being a key driver?
Yeah. So this is an interesting question, Annie, and I think you're, definitely seeing my role as a lot larger than it is, but I'll answer it anyway. So I think for me, it's been a lot about social impact from the beginning and get-go. So when I was at IIM Indore, we created an English literacy program called I Help. And I was one of the founding members of this program where we went to different schools bi-weekly and we actually helped them improve their English and math skills also eventually. And that was a program that was extremely satisfying for me to be part of. And we used to spend our only free day actually and another Sunday doing this. So it was a lot of fun and we were able to get a lot of people involved in a very short amount of time. So it was very gratifying for me. I think that was my first time really going deep into this space, right? And of course, I have had some fabulous mentors all the way back when I was at Tata. That was my first internship, actually, Tata Sustainability Group. Actually, that was a turning point for me. And I actually do want to talk about that a little bit more. I don't know how I missed that there, but I worked with the most phenomenal people. I actually did two internships there. My first one was with Shohini, and she was my mentor, and she's gone back to UN. She's with UNICEF in Switzerland, and she is one of the most phenomenal women leaders I've ever met. At a very early age, I would say I was in my late teens, in my first internship. She gave me a project and she just expected me, and she just knew I would manage it end to end. And I've never done something like that. And right from the start of the project till the end of it, she had utmost faith that I would be able to do something of this sort. And that kind of confidence and that kind of support and guidance, I think, made a huge difference, as did going and seeing these places and the amazing work that had been done by Tata. In fact, I give all credit to TSG and Tata Sustainability Group when it comes to the way I approach sustainability. And then my second internship was actually with Saurav Roy, who heads CSR at Tata Steel now. And he was tasked,
Yeah,
prodigy
data
of
administration.
sorts.
Yeah.
And he was one of the toughest taskmasters, and he left a very, very lasting impression on me. So both of these people, I think, and then of course after that, when I started working at AB InBev with Dinkar, I met him, and he has been really, really influential in my journey, and he's possibly taught me the most anyone has in the last 8, 10 years. Yeah,
There's the people who we meet along the way that end up having the single biggest influence, and some people just shape your life in a way that you never imagined, put you on a pathway,
absolutely.
right? And they empower you to be able to like really fly and create so
Yeah,
much more impact than you ever could have imagined
yeah.
earlier. I think I'm not sure if you read this one. I sound like a broken record for saying this, but one of my favorite books, Let My People Go Surfing by Yuan Chouinard, the Patagonia founder. Have you
Yeah,
read it?
yeah. No, I haven't read it, but I've heard a ton
Okay.
about it.
I'm going to send you a copy of it
Yeah.
because you talked about leadership and how to build like purpose-driven organizations, and you have your Swiggy Sustainability Squad. And I feel like just that confluence, you will get a lot of value out of reading this one book. So I'll send you a copy of it. It's one of my favorite, and it's really been a big
Amazing.
influence in how I think about building institutions.
That's
So maybe
great.
you like it. Yeah.
I'm sure I will. And I mean, just looking at the way you lead your teams, Annie, I'm sure I'll like it, because if that's been inspirational or has changed the way you do things, I'm sure I have a lot to learn from it.
Yes, yes, definitely. We'll send you a copy. So Amrita, we've talked a lot about Swiggy. We've talked now a lot about you as well. I think clearly, like you're on the pathway to mainstreaming sustainability authentically. I think that's how I'll think of you when I think of your role again, mainstreaming sustainably authentically. Um, Given all that you know now, and this is just my last question I want to end with, um, do you have hope for the future? Like one of the things that we crave and aspire to is building a cleaner, safer, fairer, wealthier, better future. So do you have hope that we can actually build a safer, cleaner, fairer, better, wealthier future? Or do you feel like we may not have a shot, or we definitely don't have a shot? Where do you
No,
fall on the...
I'm an eternal optimist. I mean, I wouldn't want to say that I'm associated with a movement which has no possible positive outcome. I definitely think we're on the right path. I think it's this kind of dialogue that's required. I think it's companies like you who are making climate action an everyday, everyone thing that matters, right? So I definitely think we're on the right path, and it's organizations like Climes and Swiggy and forums like Sus Mafia that are going to genuinely move the needle. And I also think the government and globally, I think there is a lot of intention, which is now being backed with action as well. And I'm very optimistic, even maybe overly so, that we are going to get to a point where our future generations are living better, healthier, happier lives.
Hope and optimism is all we have, right? Like we can't imagine not doing what we do and attempting.
Yeah,
I refuse to live in a world where we just give up and we say, okay, not gonna work out. Let's just go like do other things. Let's not even try and reverse climate change,
yeah.
right? So hope and
But I mean,
optimism
what
is,
got you into it? I really want to know what got you into climate finance and what was your tryst with the
I think, a
climate
confluence of three,
idea.
four things. One, I am a delusional optimist, number one.
Hmm.
So I like to think, okay, like what needs to be solved,
Hmm.
let me go and try and solve that. Even if I don't know how,
Yeah.
if it seems like a problem worth solving, then it's interesting.
Hmm.
So that is number one. Number two is I felt like if not me, then who can I even expect to ask to work on this? So if I don't
Yeah.
commit my time and energy to it, I can't ask other people to. And three, I genuinely feel like capitalism is the way to solve these problems, right? And capitalism is something that I understand reasonably well.
Yeah.
Social purpose capitalism is kind of what I think is needed to solve a big problem like this. And combining that is just really interesting. How do you create capitalistic efforts that make money but also do good, right? This is the single biggest problem that can be solved with that combo.
Yes.
And that's why I devoted like a decade at least, from 2020 January onward, at least a decade, saying, okay, multiple shots on goal. Let's find the right people to work with. Let's build institutions. Let's build products and services, and like impact carbon, waste, water, energy, air pollution, and at least make a dent. Like I won't solve all of it. It's impossible,
Hmm.
but make a dent.
So are you telling
Like
me you
do
have a
whatever.
deadline to this? Are you going to do
At
it
least
till
2030.
2030 or
Yeah.
yeah.
No, at least
And then
2030. Like beyond possibly, but at least 2030.
yeah. And what is it that'll make you go beyond 2030? What do you think would be satisfactory for you to say that I want to dedicate another 10 years to this?
I think seeing real impact created in some form, uh, like it's actually a very difficult space to be in
Yeah.
because impact from what we do is always time delayed. And like I like to pride me and the teams that we have on the fact that whatever we do is authentic climate action. We're not in the gimmicky business of just like sloganeering, like it has to be real impact because we hold ourselves accountable to that. Like if we are doing, let's say, carbon neutralization or carbon avoidance or removal, financing it somewhere, are we genuinely being able to see that impact materialized in society, right? Like livelihoods created or carbon removed. If that's not happening, we feel very like what we feel affected by it, right? Like what are we even doing?
Yeah.
Why are we're not just in the business of making money. We want to do that plus we create real impact. So
Hmm.
seeing real impact is really, really important. And in the world we live in, it's time delayed. So I would want to really start seeing like our impact scale and hundreds of thousands of people, you know, benefit as a result of this carbon financing that we're enabling. Livelihoods improve, plus like clear measurement of carbon in the atmosphere reducing. I know it's
Mm.
very ambitious, but like that would make me say, okay, we've achieved something, and let me commit another 10 years to this.
That's amazing, and I'm sure you would have. I think you would have surpassed your expectations. And we are counting on you too, because we can't have folks like you drop off after a decade. We need you around for at least a couple of decades.
Yes, yes, I absolutely. And I think people like me and you and others who are also delusional optimists, like, fighting the good fight, uh, I think we will have a far better shot of achieving this if the large institutions in society also partner up and enable that to happen. And that's why, like, I truly believe in the power of partnerships, right? We need to work with mainstream institutions to drive large change. Doing it individually is not going to suffice. Like, individuals need to influence large organizations that can then influence far larger impact in society. Um,
Yeah.
so I
Collective
think that's
action, for sure.
collective action, right? And that's what I find the mantle of a Swiggy so interesting because we're just getting started with driving mainstream sustainability. Like it started as a food delivery business, but imagine if this actually ends up being a climate impact business,
Yeah, yeah. No, I
right?
like the way you got me thinking about mainstreaming sustainability. I think that's what I'm taking away from this conversation today.
Yeah,
We are actually in a very unique and powerful position as a company that interacts with millions of consumers and customers every day,
yeah,
and millions of restaurants. And yes, definitely, I think uh, the way you've articulated it, right, mainstreaming sustainability, that is food for thought for us. And I'm going
authentically.
to take it back. Yes, of course, authentically. That is something that Swiggy, I think, anyway stands for, being authentic and true to itself. So I'm sure whatever we do, we will do it with a touch of authenticity, and we'll do it our way. But it's something that I'm going to sit and mull over, and I'm definitely going to take back to our leaders as well. And I'm sure as we move ahead in this journey, we'll be working with folks like you and mainstreaming sustainability.
But you're right, like imagine you reach 2 million consumers every day into their homes, right? You reach more than 100,000 restaurant partners every day into their
Mm.
businesses. Reach like the vastness of reach is really powerful, and that's where I feel like we have to, because we have very little time left for the climate fight. We have to work with what we have rather than building from scratch. We have to work with what we have, right? Mainstream institutions.
Yes,
That's what I'm most excited about.
me too, and looking forward to doing a lot more actually. And I think this year is going to be an exciting year. We have some very exciting things in the pipeline. We have more coming up on She the Change, on cooperatives and farmer support, and a lot more in terms of culinary diversity, better packaging, climate, of course. Fingers crossed, we have a few exciting announcements in the next few months.
Awesome, awesome. Amrita, appreciate you for all you do, and appreciate Swiggy for all that Swiggy is doing on a through the larger platform. It's been great having you with us on TV OGC with us today. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Annie. Thanks for this opportunity.